Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 41st edition of the Dump and Chase podcast. The Phantoms pulled off a blockbuster trade with Tri-City. What does this mean for the future of the team? The HockeyFan.com blog machine is running full steam, and we give our thoughts on the menace that is the National Team Development Program. The show starts right now.
Shut up and sit down.
Yeah, that wasn't over dramatic at all, was it?
Not a bit, no.
Thank you all for tuning in to the Dump and Chase podcast. My name is Sam Olmstead, and joining me as always, well, what can I say about him that all of you don't already assume anyways? Mr. Justin Irwin.
Yes. Infamy.
Have you de-iced your property yet?
No. My driveway is probably about 4 inches of ice, 6 inches of snow, and I'm pretty sure if you dig deep enough, you'll find Jimmy Hoffa.
I spent probably a good hour and a half yesterday digging out my drive, like just an inch of snow and then an inch of ice on top of it. I think I added about 3 pounds of muscle mass after I was done with all that, so ended up actually working out pretty well for me.
I have not had time with work, so it's either write for the blog or do housework, so you know how that goes.
Write the blog, Cinderella, do the laundry, Cinderella. Moving on. Sooner or later, we're going to start this episode. We're, Okay. All right, serious face.
When Yakety Sax goes into public domain, we're doomed.
Oh, yeah. Big time. So, keeping with the theme, we'll get started here with some light housekeeping. First and foremost, thank you everyone who took the time to listen to our tribute episode for former Phantom Ben Politis. Again, a big thanks to Matt Lipsack and Matt Geika for helping us out. As of a few days ago, that episode became our most viewed episode ever. And while that fact is not something we're celebrating, we are glad that so many people got to hear Matt's stories about Ben and, was able to get a little bit of insight into a life that, although there were struggles with mental health, was a life well lived.
Yeah. And the amount of people who reached out to us and, said they appreciated it was kind of amazing. So, thanks everybody for listening.
And we have a bit of news that is cause for celebration. Justin's weekly previews are back on hockeyfan.com. Justin, what the hell, dude?
Yeah, I'm starting to get a little bit more time at work. Not really. I squeezed in some time somewhere. I'm going to try to keep it up, but I don't know, especially the way this year has gone. The amount of info that you get this year is pretty slim and none. We'll get into some of that later. Hopefully I'll be able to at least, semi-regularly keep up. And I'm starting to get a little bit more help, other people writing. So,
yeah, over the past few episodes, I've made reference to some numbers I've been keeping this season as far as percentages of times teams have held leads, been tied, trailing in games, etc. Well, this is now all on blog form on hockeyfan.com. This is my first foray into the blogging world. Now, I had the less brilliant idea to incorporate the Statman nickname that I'm kind of on to begin with into the titles as, movie title references. Moving forward, the blog will just simply be known as By the Numbers, but it is also something you can now find on hockeyfan.com. Taking up more of your time dealing with all my garbage now.
We're getting there. So... Anyway, I'm glad to finally, get some other input that really helps, especially, when I'm hard pressed sometimes to for time to write. So, welcome to the team.
Don't mention it. All right, now some stuff about the actual team and not us anymore. Maybe lost in the sauce the past few weeks with the Phantoms not playing. But there was a trade where Nate Hanley was sent to Green Bay for Braden Stannard. And by the looks of it, we will see Braden in the lineup this weekend.
I guess, yeah. I mean, he's had time. I don't know of any holdups. I don't know what the current roster situation is. Yeah, so it's a pretty even, fair trade, pretty straight, no caveats to it. So, welcome to the team, Braden.
And finally, somebody screwed up big time. I say this because very, very big news was announced before we recorded. Apparently, Noreen and Kohler didn't get the memo on how this works in Youngstown these days. We record, then you drop the breaking news hammer. But it has been announced that Ben Schoen's time in Youngstown has come to an end. Ben, along with a pair of 2021 Phase 2 8th round draft picks, will be heading to Tri-City. Now, coming out of the cornfield and into Youngstown will be prospect and 03 forward Shane LaChance, along with a 2021 Phase 2 first and fourth round pick, along with a 2022 Phase 2 first round pick. And LaChance is somebody that is coming to Youngstown with a bit of some hockey pedigree.
Yeah, he has a dad who played many years in the NHL, not really a standout player, but, one of those grizzled veterans, a lot of years with the Islanders, so.
The assistant captain with the Islanders.
Yeah, not going to say I'm a huge fan, but that's more of a compliment than, anything. It's a pretty interesting trade. Obviously, Ben was well-liked the past couple of years here in Youngstown. We'll dissect the trade a little bit more, but we get a few picks. It looks like both teams are looking to be active going into the trade deadline. So I don't know. Maybe this is just the first.
Yeah, Tri-City has been storing a lot of picks in the shed here the last year or so. They're building for the playoffs. They're building for this year, so they were able to dust off a few of them.
Yeah,
send them our way, and believe you me, we appreciate it.
Yeah, Jason Kohler is a guy who was known for, if he thought he could make a move towards the trade deadline to bolster his team going into the playoffs, he was going to do it. Sometimes they panned out, sometimes they didn't.
So now that we got all of that out of the way, we would like to take a minute, or several, and talk about the silver spoon-fed, holier-than-thou, entitled group of whiny, face-caged, fortunate sons that is the National Team Development Program. So what was the latest incident that irked us enough to go down this path again? Well, 2 weekends ago. 3-game series at the Covelli Center with the under-18s. Saw a little bit of a pattern in the games on Saturday and Sunday. Both games, Youngstown jumps out to a 3-0 lead, completely dominate the game. Both of these 3-0 leads were followed by 5-on-3 power plays for Team USA. The one, I believe, within a little over a minute after Youngstown taking a 3-0 lead. Yeah, penalties being called while the Phantoms are on the power play in the offensive zone. All of a sudden, the whistle was coming out a lot more often than usual. I always have the take, I don't think referees are ever in on anything. I think that's a completely ridiculous take to have. That weekend may be the closest I've ever come to thinking that could have been a possibility.
I mean, it's hard to say the game was called fair, and it seems a lot of these games against the National Team Developmental Program are not called fair. I guess maybe you could say these kids sell it well, but I don't know. We saw one or more plays that I didn't think were sold well, and yeah.
Now, of course, this culminated with the game that Sunday. In the second period, Phantoms are on the power play. Puck goes up to the left point. Jack Malone collects the puck, turns around, and has his feet taken out from under him by Ryan St. Louis. USA goes the other way, gets a shorthanded goal. Then at that point, they're only down 3-2. Go back and look at the video. From what I was told, the official reasoning given by the referees was that Jack Malone fell over on his own. Again, go back and look at the video.
There is no way. Yeah, it's completely impossible that they missed that call.
He didn't fall out. He didn't fall over on his own. This was a full-on soccer tackle. His feet were taken out from under him. And at that point in the game was when the referees decided to swallow their whistle. Are you freaking kidding me?
Yeah, really, really. I mean, I don't know. I know sometimes when a team is down, refs will swallow the whistle. But again, it seems to happen a lot with this particular organization.
And and a lot of it boils down to, is more often than not, the Team USA program in these games, a lot of the times they get the benefit of the doubt. And why is it they get the benefit of the doubt? It boils down to one thing: draft picks. 2 years ago, right at the end of the season, USA starts a line brawl up in Plymouth. 4 or 5 of their players were suspended?
Yeah.
The coach was suspended for grabbing a Youngstown player who was on the ice. He was on the bench and reached onto the ice to grab a Youngstown player. The coach was suspended.
Yeah. I mean, Robo, always was known for being the most stable guy on the bench. Let me tell you something. And I mean, full disclosure, we were not innocent in this in the least. No, we started the brawl. You can point to this, you can point to that. But, last minute we have our enforcers out on the ice and we start a brawl. Yeah, it was, both sides behaved very badly. Players and coaches were suspended. But what happens after that?
Well, what happens after that is the 18s are supposed to come down to Youngstown to play an afternoon game. And of course, they've got Jack Hughes. They've got these guys that are, they've got a lot of guys that, are discussed that are going in the NHL draft. And they send the U17s down.
This is their last USHL game.
Yeah.
Okay. This is the last chance, for a lot of scouts who aren't going to Europe to watch a tournament to see this group. This is something, you kind of sell. There are people who book this months in advance to come see for this reason. Scouts, at all levels. And what happens?
Yeah. Yeah. So instead of them sending the under 18s down to Youngstown, they send the under 17s down, like you do in this league.
Yeah.
You know what? Youngstown gets in a fight with Omaha. They're going to send Tri-City the next day because they don't want to go. And, and when that was all said and done, we had heard rumblings that the league was very upset with Team USA for doing what they did. But at the same time, that game still had to be sanctioned to play. They still had to give you the approval. So I don't really believe they were all that upset. Plus look at the fact that the National Team Development Program is the baby of USA Hockey. That is their child. And who sanctions the USHL?
Yeah. There were playoff implications to this game, not, who makes it, but there were positional implications on this. So other teams were affected. And one team in particular's general manager was quite vocal about not liking this situation, but at the same time, nothing is done about it.
Well, yeah, you're talking about Ryan Hardy in Chicago. We could
wink, wink, nod, nod. Yeah, Ryan Hardy.
We could reach out to him on Twitter to ask him what he thought about it. But oh wait, no, we can't. The USHL forced him off of Twitter. for giving up state secrets like the dispersal draft was going on. Because that's just how tight-lipped the league is now. Yeah, so I mean, if there were claims that there was punishment, I highly doubt it. If somebody wants to come forward and say what it actually was, go right ahead. But 2-3 days later, the USHL is promoting all these promoting all these NHL draft prospects. So whatever anger they felt, they got over it pretty quickly.
These guys are suspended, which is supposed to affect their IIHF status, eligibility. They still played. Yeah, nothing came of that.
Then another point, and I think this bothered me a little more than it bothered you, but I'm still going to bring it up, was what used to be the USHL All-Star Game. Now, obviously not really going on this season with, everything going on, but in the past, the USHL All-Star Game was a team of All-Stars from the Eastern Conference against a team of All-Stars from the Western Conference. It was decided that was changed around, and now it became basically a USHL All-Star team taking on the under-18s. Because, and like we said back when this happened, if there's anything that the NTDP needs is more promotion. Because they are just really hard up to get the attention of scouts and all these other people that they want to get the attention of. You are somebody who travels to Plymouth regularly. What would you say the crowd makeup is at USA Hockey Arena at any given night there?
I mean, a quarter at least scouts. There's a lot of youth hockey kids, probably CompuWare, who also play in the arena. Things like that. But yeah, I mean, obviously the main audience there is intended to be scouts.
Yeah. And a time or two in seasons past, I've ventured up to the Huntington Lounge at Cavelli Center. When Team USA is not in the arena, I've seen maybe 2 or 3 scouts sitting up there. When I've gone up there when Team USA is in town, almost the entire lounge is scouts. Not to mention, these junior tournaments that they play, they play on. Basically, anywhere they play, anywhere they go, there are scouts crawling all over them. And like I said, there may be at least 10 scouts whenever Team USA comes to the Cavelli Center. When they're not there, maybe a few. So when you have something like the All-Star Game where, you give these kids, and the bulk of the crowd in the All-Star Game is scouts. A lot of people aren't traveling from all over the Midwest to, go see the All-Star game, go see this All-Star Game. The bulk of the people at the All-Star Game are scouts. So where you have 20 kids on each team, you've now shortened that down to 20 kids, period, and the other team being the under 18. So 20 roster spots for that All-Star Game, you're taking away USHL kids, USHL teams to turn it into basically another exhibition game for the under 18s.
No, I mean, that's pretty much it. Yeah. It made no sense at the time. It still doesn't make any sense. I'm not sure what the league plans to do going forward with the format, but yeah, it was obviously another attention grab.
Then the next point of contention, and I know this is something you love every year going into the season when we're trying to figure out rosters. On the whole, in order for a USHL team to have a roster, they have to draft. A bulk of any team's roster is built through the draft. The NTDP recruits their players. They don't go through the draft like the rest of the teams have to. They recruit their teams, and even sometimes will poach players from USHL rosters. And again, I know this is something every year you just you're looking out for with murderous intent, hoping that nobody gets swiped away and ushered off to Plymouth.
Yeah, I mean, normally these kids are picked well ahead of any draft. Obviously, that's the most fair way to do things. But yeah, I mean, somebody says, hey, I'm going to play for USA, and then goes up north to Canada, and hey, your first round futures pick is now, sitting on their bench for 2 years. hey, you tendered somebody, but then there's an opening in Plymouth.
And you mentioned before when that happened with, was it Jacob Tortora that it happened with?
Yeah.
And you mentioned there that a little bit of cash might have changed hands as the resolution to that whole thing. That the possibility exists, which was very generous by Team USA because they're funded by USA Hockey, who gets a large chunk of their funding by the NHL. So it was nice of them to, throw a couple George Washingtons at us. Regular USHL teams that, actually have to depend on fans and merchandising and sponsors and whatnot, what else to actually, survive during the season, I guess you can call it, because with maybe a couple of exceptions, there's not really many teams in the USHL that actually make money over the course of a season.
I don't even want to say unfair. There's just no way to even gauge it. I don't know of any other sport, any other level in hockey, anywhere else where you have this situation. And I know there's a few reasons for it. Like you said, draft picks. USA Hockey wants to keep up with Canada. This is the solution.
And what it boils down to is, if you really look at it, especially the under 18s, and now a lot of what we're saying doesn't really pertain to the under 17s, but a year later they grow up. They move up a rung on the ladder. But yeah, I mean, essentially, especially with the under 18s, they're essentially an exhibition team playing in this league. They are an all-star exhibition team. As far as junior hockey is concerned in the United States, they are the Harlem Globetrotters.
Yeah, and and then you get the under 17s, who some years, you look forward to playing them because, hey, you get to make up a couple of these games and beat up on a couple 16-year-olds. And then some years they embarrass you.
Yeah. And it just begs the question, because for one, a lot of the kids that are in this league, while they're in the league, they want to go to the playoffs. They want to play for a Clark Cup. They want that in their time in the USHL. But especially, for teams in the Eastern Conference, X amount of games per season, we have to play what is essentially this exhibition all-star team that, when the playoffs roll around, they're not even the ones that play in the playoffs. Once the season's over, they're off to international tournaments. They have no real stake in anything that goes on during the season.
Yeah, and I mean, even when they don't make the playoffs, there's no pressure.
Which kind of leads me into my next point, and it's something we say and people think we're making jokes, but there is actually a lot more to it, is that the fact that Team USA is required to wear face cages.
Yeah, they do not get a waiver for underage players to go with a shield, half shield, instead of a full shield or a face cage. So, there's no way they take a glove directly in the face or worse, But they can do that to you, and they do. A lot.
Yeah, they don't have to worry about punches being thrown. They don't have to worry about sticks being, swung around. They're protected. And in doing so, they tend to be a little more brave than your average USHL player can be, who doesn't have that level of protection.
Yeah. I mean, so it just goes to the level of no repercussions. You can't hit them.
These kids are scouted heavily already. And they get into these games, they kind of have that extra level of bravery, and they're willing to get into more scraps because they're not afraid of what's going to happen to them. Meanwhile, you have kids sitting out half the game for fights, for game misconducts, what ends up being, suspensions, dealing with Team USA game in and game out. And when it's all said and done, there's the level of repercussions to a USHL team versus Team USA is severely, severely tilted towards the USHL teams. Kind of bringing this down to the end when it comes to the actual USHL league itself, the league offices located in Chicago, which is something else we could get into, maybe another episode. To me, it really irritates, especially with a lot of the stuff on social media, it really irritates me, especially with this hashtag who's next and everything else. because if you go through and look at the USHL social media, they're promoting two different things. They promote the USHL is the path to college. That's not how they promote Team USA. They promote Team USA as the path to the NHL. You hardly ever see it as, the USHL is part of the path to the NHL. That's the path to college. But the path to the pros is Team USA.
So, yeah, well, I mean, the NHL draft shows that. I mean, I know a lot of players go from college to the NHL, but when you're looking at that, list of guys who have gone, from the USHL, then directly to or within the next couple of years, you see a lot of USA.
And the thing that's funny to me is that after a draft, and the NHL will put out these numbers, kids drafted from every league, all these different junior leagues and everything, and from college, the NHL will list the USHL and the NTDP as two separate entities. It's two separate numbers. How many were drafted from the USHL? How many was drafted from the National Team Development Program? But when the USHL reports on this, they will combine those numbers and call it a USHL number.
Yeah, well, I mean, because it's two separate squads. They play outside of the USHL, so not all of their stats come from the USHL. They play a lot of D1 and D3 colleges, the NAL occasionally. How fair is that? I mean, again, there's just no way to. I can't even say it's unfair because you can't have even an apples to apples comparison.
Yeah, when it's all said and done, it's just kind of the truth that we have to come to terms with, that we have to learn to live with, being a fan of a USHL team, is that as long as Team USA is pumping out, dozens of draft picks year after year, there is going to be a separate standard for the way they are treated in this league and the way the rest of us are treated in this league.
And, I know the amount of draft picks goes up and down. There's a little bit of a fluctuation, a curve. But, yeah, they consistently put out at least a fair number of picks, and I don't think we're ever going to get out of this.
So to wrap this whole thing up, I kind of went back and forth about how I wanted to end this segment. I'll simply put it this way. If anybody of interest is listening to this, as far as the USHL League Offices are concerned, we are not affiliated in any way, shape, or form with the Youngstown Phantoms. We are a fan broadcast. We are non-commercial. So your goofy little social media and whatever fine structure that you have for teams that, God forbid, they actually want to get information out to fans and keep fans in the loop, your little fine structure does not apply to us. And quite frankly, you can take it and piss up a rope with it. So now that we got that out of the way, let's take a look at the weekend at hand. That's right, Phantoms had 2 weekends off, some by design, some by not their choice. But this weekend, the Phantoms are back in action. Thursday and Friday, they will be traveling to Muskegon for a 2-game series with the Lumberjacks. Both nights, the games start at 7:10 p.m. They will both be available on Hockey TV. Saturday, the Phantoms will be back at the Covelli Center for the start of a 3-game homestand, I guess, before they're back on the road again. Chicago Steel will be coming to town. That's a 7:05 start time on Saturday. It is also Military Appreciation Night. I believe there will be a jersey auction after the game. And I will say, in years past, I am not much of a fan of camouflage design, or anything like that. Anybody who is, I apologize, but it's just not my thing. What they've put out as far as the jerseys they'll be wearing on Saturday, I actually do like a lot.
Yeah, the design is pretty striking.
Yes.
Yeah, so I know a bit of thought has gone into the jersey design this year. Everybody has opinions on all of the jerseys, but I bet you're not going to find a lot of people who don't like this one.
So we're coming down to the end of the episode, so that means it's time for another segment of Ask Justin. So Justin, today's question comes from Phantom Superfan, old Iron Thumbs himself, Chance Metz. So Chance wants to know, why did the Phantoms trade Ben Schoen, and who got the better end of the deal, Youngstown or Tri-City?
Okay, why? Okay. All right. This is going to be maybe a little bit emotional, controversial, all of the above. Ben was a tender. He had been here since he was 16, had great expectations, injury issues, whatever. His playing time past seasons have been limited. I think he was a little bit frustrated, maybe with, how the team was going this season. He's a competitor. I think the team realizes that much. Tri-City is loading up for a cup run, it looks like. I think it was in his interest, our interest, if we made this deal. He goes to some place where he will get a chance. He is likely not coming back to juniors. That's one of those things that's always up in the air, especially now. But he's likely off to college. I can't see that not happening at this point. So he's not going to have another chance at this level for a cup. We're not doing so great this year, if you haven't noticed.
I haven't.
Not going to criticize anybody here. Every team.
What are you talking about?
Every team has off seasons. You got to think about, your veteran players, those guys who aren't coming back, and what are you doing next year? And as we mentioned earlier, Tri-City had loaded up picks. They've got some decent prospects in their system. So they're looking to buy. They've got the capital. We're looking to sell. Match made in heaven. I guess it doesn't help that their front office and bench are headed by guys who used to run the front office and bench here. So, we've got that history. I think both teams will benefit.
Well, the carousel song has played, and that means we are at the end of the episode. The Dump and Chase podcast is brought to you by HockeyFan.com. We are also syndicated on OhioHockeyDigest.com in the Phantom section. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to our channel and enable the notification bell to know instantly when new episodes are released. Also, don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Facebook. The links will be down in the description. So for Justin Irwin, I'm Sam Olmstead. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll talk to you all again next week. I told the USHL to piss up a rope.